We have Grandmaster Georg Meier, who is on your screen, a very solid Grandmaster, originally from Germany, who now represents Greece, and he's playing with the black pieces against Daniil Dubov. The first two games that they played in 15 plus 10 segment ended in draws, and now we are in 10 plus 10 section, the first rapid game, and you can see there Georg just adjusting all the pieces. Today this game that is being played on 9th of November, and it is the same day on which the great world champion Mikhail Tal was born. And there you have Daniil Dubov coming in. For many, he is also a very aggressive and creative player. Many call him the modern day Tal, and will be interesting to see how this clash of styles pans out, with Dubov's aggression against Georg Meier's stability. The players are ready, a handshake, and off we go. Pawn to e4 by Daniil, e5 as expected, very solid by Georg, and Daniil stops there, and he's like, should I go for the kill for this game? Should I play solidly? What should I do? Because sometimes you can see Daniil plays very practically, pragmatically, makes quick draws as well. He goes knight to c3, very interesting, and Georg goes knight to f6. The bishop comes out to c4. Now knight c6 is very much a possibility in this position. Then white can go d3 followed by this f4 line, which can be quite interesting. But Georg goes for this knight takes e4 variation. It is known as Frankenstein Dracula variation after queen h5. Whoa, there's a quick mate threatened. The knight goes back, defends this, attacks the bishop. The bishop drops back. And now the best way to continue is just bishop e7, queen e5 and castle. Very simple position for black, but he goes knight c6. And this is dangerous. This is dangerous because this gives Daniil the chance to go for knight to b5, a crazy line. You can't take the knight because it's mate on f7. And I believe Georg Meier may not have wanted to venture in this direction. Also his time usage, you can see, is taking a lot of time, 6.5 minutes. Queen is pushed back, again attacks the pawn. Now the main line here is f5, queen d5, queen e7, and you give up this pawn, this rook, and play b6 with a crazy position. But he goes knight f5. And by the way, this move is perhaps lesser known. Queen to d5, threatening a mate here. Queen e7 is met with knight c7. So knight drops back to h6. d3 now is the best move, attacking the knight. But d4 is quite tempting. He goes d4. But this is slightly inaccurate because black goes pawn to d6. And Georg now thinks here, he's already down to 5 minutes on the clock. So the opening has worked out pretty well for Daniil. The bishop can take the knight on h6 next and threaten a mate. So you need to defend it. You need to defend against it. And the only move is d6. And now when I take on h6, you go bishop e6, very important, attacking the queen. Now the queen has to move here. Queen f3. By the way, there's also this move bishop g5 later, which had to be seen, but bishop takes bishop because d5 was threatened. And now you take on f8. It's a crazy position. Bishop c4 attacking the knight. 3.5 minutes for Georg. If you look at the material, it's right now white is a piece up. Bishop g7 takes on b5 and d5, important move, because if you take h8, I have knight d4, and in fact black is the one who's better here. We will analyze this deeply after the game. de, rook g8 played, and now Dubov's bishop is attacked. He goes bishop f6 and Georg takes the pawn on e5. Well, the queen is hanging, but he takes this, knight takes e5 here. And the point is, now if you take my queen, I take your queen. If you take on b7, I have bishop c6 at the very least. So he takes on e5 here. And now d takes e5 is possible. But also there's an intermezzo that you can do here, which is bishop c6. It feels like Meier has managed to, oh, he goes queen e7, which is also a nice move actually. And long castle, bishop c6 played, very solid defense. Queen to c3, and black has managed to equalize this game. He's pawn up. Just the problem is the king is a bit weak. You can't long castle. The rook has already moved. f6 played, rook h e1 comes in, and this is already very dangerous position. I think Georg tries to castle with hand, king g7, rook d8, and then he would be a pawn up. So Dubov decides this is the moment to sack a knight. Well, like Mikhail Tal, let's go. Takes, rook takes, and now very important move, only move to be in the game is queen h4. Very tough move. Queen h4, and then, but he goes queen f6, and that's a huge blunder. Because now there is rook e8 check followed by queen hanging. I mean, the king can come up. He goes for a check, and Georg is ready with his next move. With his king, he moves it up, but queen c4 check, and it is game over because the king will move and g8 will hang. If you take king e8, which is the main move, I take on g8, you block with the queen, I give rook e1, and he resigns here. He resigns. And Daniil Dubov, playing the Frankenstein Dracula variation, manages to beat Georg Meier on this amazing encounter. Let's analyze this entire variation deeply. Let's try to understand what happened and also learn from it. A perfect, by the way, ode to the great Mikhail Tal, the great world champion. I'm pretty sure he would be smiling up there in heaven looking at such a game played by Dubov. Okay, let's go through the game. e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, knight e4 is a good move, queen h5, knight d6. And as mentioned in the video, bishop e7 is the more calm way to play this. But knight c6 playable, knight b5, g6, and here f5 has to be played. And then queen d5, either queen e7 or queen f6. I mean, one of the two moves is good. You have to analyze this a bit more deeply. But after knight c7, it seems like black should have absolutely no compensation for the missing rook. Also, a pawn is lost here. But the thing is, after something like bishop b7, knight is jumping into d4. There's pressure here. And it somehow gives black a lot of compensation here. So this is something worth exploring, and I believe Georg didn't want to go here, so he went knight f5. Now this is already a mistake because of queen d5, knight h6. By the way, there's also an interesting idea g4 here which should be explored a bit more. Knight h6 and then maybe g5, which leads to having a pawn here and then going queen d5. I think this might also be an interesting line to explore. The only thing is the knight on f5 is very strong in such positions. I don't know how good of a compensation that is. But queen d5, now knight h6. And here d3 makes a lot of sense because in many lines the knight was taking the pawn on d4, if you remember. So d6, bishop h6, bishop e6, and now a very good move here for white is bishop g5. So if you take here on g5, I go knight c7 check, king, if you go king d7, I go knight e6 followed by taking on e6 with a check, so here. And now you can take on e6 with the queen, but also you can do knight e6, pawn e6, and knight h3, a very nice intermezzo attacking the queen, and white is better here. So d3 would have been nicer, but Daniil goes d4, and I was acquainted with this move in this my 62 most instructive games of chess. There's a game between Andreasen and Kupfer stitch, and it actually went this way, bishop e6, the same way that we see here. So now white is at this point a pawn up, a piece up, piece for a pawn. So if you recapture here d5 and game over, white wins. So you take on b3, now material is even, I capture a piece. If you take here, I take back, white is winning there. So the only move is to attack this knight either through a4 or c4. He went bishop c4, bishop a4 is also possible, bishop c4, bishop g7, and now bishop b5 was a nice move here. In that game that I was talking about, Andresian and Kupfer stitch, the game went rook g8, but after bishop f6, queen d7, white was already clearly better. Actually, in that game it was bishop a4, not bishop c4, but it went like this, bishop f6, queen d7. Yeah, and now I think here the knight is hanging, so knight a3 was played, and then knight d4, queen h3, and this is how the game continued. A pretty crazy game with takes, and eventually white winning. But bishop c4, bishop g7, bishop b5, good move by Georg actually here. I mean, think about it. Right now white is a piece up, so the most logical thing to do is to attack this, but after bishop f6 and then knight c3, I'm better here clearly as white. I would be a piece up. So to play this, now it means that the material is even, but I can be a rook up. But after knight d4, this is the position I found quite amazing. So I'm attacking c2 here. There are ways to defend it. Like for example, I mean, queen e4 looks wrong because of bishop c6 attacking here. So queen d1 makes a lot of sense. But now queen g5 attacking here, g3, let's imagine, queen f5 attacking here, and let's say I go rook c1. I'm a rook up, so I'm trying to play this still. But now check, and knight e2, I mean, this is hanging. So taking the rook in the corner is wrong because of knight d4, which is amazing position. So Dubov understands this and takes de, and now rook g8 found by Georg. I think Georg Meier should be given credit here for finding so many good moves. In fact, he could have been potentially better here if he found bishop c6, queen c3, de now, and black is better, queen e5, even queen e7. I don't see how white will ever be better. But I think this move, queen e7, allowed this, knight f3, and at the end we know how the game concluded with knight e5 takes rook e5. Queen h4 was the best defense, although it looks like the king is terribly weak here. The main point is that after something like g3, check, king here, I mean rook g7 wins, but I go rook e3 threatening queen f6 mate, so g5 is the only move, and somehow the game would end in a draw after a perpetual like this. But queen f6 was played, and now came the check, king f7 check, and here Georg resigned, but king e8 takes, the rook is hanging, so queen f8 check, king d8, queen f8, so king d7 check, king here, another check, and you have to give up the queen, after which I'm completely winning here as white.